Hey.
Hello, Richard. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm all right. Thank you very much. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What a few days.
I know. We're going to have to keep this podcast relatively light-hearted because we can't be all down in the dumps about it.
No.
But yes, it's a slight change from the norm.
Yes, of course. That's to be expected, isn't it? I think that's absolutely right and proper as well.
Yeah, exactly.
I really do. Yeah.
So, this is going to be Pod 36, the Gerry Anderson podcast, and our tribute to Richard Gregory.
Let's do it.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Gerry Anderson Podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
Right.
Here we are then.
Yes.
Now, you'll have to forgive us. Today is a sort of a special but sad episode of the Gerry Anderson podcast as we remember Richard Gregory, who passed away recently, and it seems even quite surreal saying those words. We're used, aren't we, Jamie, to losing members of the Gerry Anderson family?
Absolutely. But
boy,
yeah, it's an odd one, isn't it? Because you normally get either some warning that somebody's not very well, or they're in their 80s or 90s, and you think, well, it's still awful news, but there's a kind of a good innings aspect to it. But Richard was only in his early 60s, completely unexpected, and yes, really rather sad. So, we promise not to make this too heavy, but we want you to know about Richard and his amazing contribution to the worlds of Gerry Anderson and beyond. So, in the place of Marcus Hearn's second part of the interview, which will come next week in Pod 37, I've managed to find on my phone a 10-minute chat I had with Richard about some adverts he worked on with Dad in the late 80s, early 90s. So it's a little bit out of context, but you start to get a feeling for what a genius this guy was and how humble he was, and all the sort of stories and yarns that he would spin. But Richard and I will also chuck in a few memories here and there throughout as well.
Of course.
So hopefully it'll be very happy stuff overall.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
we will still have the usual, which consists of what, Richard? What happens?
Well, we have the usual. We'll have some Gerry Anderson news. We've got some listeners' emails that they've been sent in. Yes, I did for a moment. I'm all out of sorts. That were sent into podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk, where you can get in touch with us. And we'll have Chris Dale a little later on, of course, with the Randomizer.
Yes.
All throughout this episode as well, I'll be reading out some fantastic tweets, memories and tributes that we got via Twitter, or that people were posting on Twitter and Facebook as well for Richard. And of course, it strikes me that there may be some people out there who don't know who Richard Gregory is.
Well, exactly,
now,
and that's one of the reasons we're doing this.
Who Richard Gregory is. You will absolutely be familiar with his work. You would have seen something that he has worked on, from Batman to Terrahawks to, well, Space Precinct in my case.
Walking with Dinosaurs.
Yeah, Walking with Dinosaurs.
Event Horizon, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. What else did Richard... I mean, there's so many things you kind of end up forgetting. Lost in Space.
Wow.
The Matt LeBlanc version, which, they did some great visuals for.
Yeah.
A man full of stories, and his work will almost certainly touch your entertainment experience at some point in your life.
Absolutely right. So let me just read a couple of Facebook messages that we received over the week. This is from Penquiller, who said, "The Anderson universe has lost a great friend and supporter. My condolences to his family." Anthony Clark said, "I did a little work with him many years ago. Was struck by his skills and ability to make the complicated seem simple." And Kevin John Davies, who I know a lot of you know of, said, "Only ever fond memories of Richard back to our Terrahawks days." Certainly made an impression on many, many people, and that's why we're going to try and keep this a celebration rather than a memorial, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. He certainly would have wanted that.
Work.
Yes, he was always one for having a good chuckle, even in the darkest of times. So, yes, we're definitely going to keep it light.
Yes.
So, Richard, in the name of levity...
Yeah, it's the news.
No.
What? What, the interview?
First of all, we're going to do everybody's new favourite section,
Your new favourite section.
Fab Facts. Now, I am working on the lyrics for the
Are
Fab
you?
Facts music, which you can hear going on right now.
Yeah,
So
fantastic.
eventually,
Look forward to
Richard and I will get together, don our cassocks, and
Again.
yes, again, and deliver a choral version. But until then, you'll just have to work with the music as it is. So, Richard, I've got my tome of Fab Facts right here. I'm going to flip through the pages. You're going to say Fab. I will stop
Joy.
and read out the first or most interesting fact on the spread.
Yeah,
If it's
okay.
one we've hit before, I will change
Yeah.
spread.
All right.
So here we go. Are you ready, Richard?
I'm ready, Jamie.
Off we go.
Fab. Oh, I see lots of big pictures.
Absolutely. Now, funnily enough, you've landed there on a picture page
Yeah.
with a picture of a Thunderbird 2 built by Richard Gregory. Would you believe?
Of course. Of course.
Yeah, amazing.
Oh, lovely.
So there you go. That's nice. Let's have a look. What's here?
Oh, the excitement is killing me.
All right.
If in doubt, just make something
I'm
up.
not making anything up. It's just that these are all kind of obvious ones.
Did you know?
I'm going to give you two facts because they're both
Okay.
fairly well-known ones, I think, but you still
right.
might enjoy them. So,
Yeah.
the collapsing palm trees lining Thunderbird 2's runway on Tracy Island were made to fall
Yeah.
back by pulling two levers connected to two broomsticks at the end of the set.
Now, I didn't know that.
There you go. So
That's great.
there's
I
Fab
love
fact number
that.
1 for today. And Fab fact number...
Broomstick, specifically broomstick.
Well,
broom handles, I think.
Broom handles, yeah.
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 Ah.
I mean, I assume they removed the brooms, the ends.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Because in the stage show, of course, we had the palm trees on our fingers.
Yes,
for
of
the
course.
Thunderbird 2 launch.
And of course, Richard built all the hats, the vehicle hats for
He
the stage
did.
show.
He did. I mean, his fingerprints are all over
Yes.
Gerry Anderson's stuff.
And we
aren't
will
they?
keep finding them as we go through this, I think.
I'm sure.
So our other fact for the day
Yeah, that was said in inverted commas.
is that the designs for the two Rolls-Royce star cars in Thunderbirds and Terrahawks, Fab 1 and Hudson, each
Yeah.
had to be approved by the car company before being built.
Yeah.
There you go. And Richard did. I think he made Hudson from molds. I think that were designed by. I want to say Space Models, but it may have been somebody else. So there you go.
Great.
Bizarrely, both Richard Gregory related facts, quite by
Yes.
chance.
Well, how fitting.
So,
That's
yeah,
brilliant.
very appropriate. So there you go.
Well done.
And thankfully, Richard thinks this is the end of this week's Fab Facts.
Fab facts.
Oh yeah, thanks for singing that,
Yeah.
Richard.
That'll fit now, you see.
Everyone's going to be singing along with you. So there we go. Richard, is there
Well done. I thought that was an unqualified success, Jamie.
some of the pages in that book are filled with things that actually aren't that interesting? That's the problem. They may be facts, but Fab might be pushing it sometimes.
Yeah, okay, all right. Well, we've got Fab Facts out the way. Still to come, we've got listeners' emails, of course, which have been sent into podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk over the last week or so. We've also got a short little 10-minute interview with Richard Gregory that Jamie conducted in your garden or his garden, Jamie?
In my garden
Yeah.
in 2017, he would just. I would be at home working, and I would hear a loud diesel engine pull up outside, and think, "Oh, that's probably Richard." And without fail, things would proceed as follows: I would go to the door, and he would say, "You all right, Jamie?" Which is just, the general greeting was, "All right, you all right?"
Yeah.
He'd say, "Come and have a look at this," and we'd go out the front, and he'd open the back of his big black Volkswagen van. And then he would produce something which he had recently found. Now, those
Wow.
some things ranged from the Thunderbird 2 used in the Swinton insurance adverts in the 90s, the original Zelda head from Terrahawks, the original Dick Spanner head from Dick Spanner, a stop-motion model of Dad that they made, which featured in a few episodes of Dick Spanner.
Oh, wow.
He would just turn up with the most amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Hudson from Terrahawks front grille. So every time he would show me something, and I'd take a photo of it, and then we'd go in, and he'd have a cup of tea, and then we'd go and sit in the garden, weather permitting, and we'd just kind of put the world to rights. He would endlessly encourage me in what I'm trying to do with, continuing things with Firestorm and other various projects.
Of course.
We discussed what we thought were the most crucial things, and he would always sort of thread in a few great little anecdotes about either crazy happenings that went on in his life and career, or little moments where he came up with solutions for stuff. But they were never delivered with any sense of arrogance or even personal achievement. They were just humbly sort of, and then we did this. And there's one of those in the little chat, thankfully, that I captured.
Great.
You may want to watch the relevant advert to fully appreciate what he means, but we'll come to that later on. So
I always think with people like Richard who've had such an amazing career, the stuff that they remember is just the tip of the iceberg. Imagine the stuff they've forgotten. That's the incredible thing, isn't it?
Well, he had a pretty amazing memory, but there were certainly things that had happened, I think, that I occasionally would remember and he would have forgotten. But same vice versa. One of the times he visited, he turned up and we didn't go to the back of his van. In fact, he'd already brought the thing from the back of his van and handed over a bin bag to me. And he said, "There you go. Have a look at that, Jamie. Remember that?" And I'm sure I mentioned this to you before, Richard, but inside were Romex hands from Space Precinct. And I looked at them and he said, "Tell me what you remember about those." And I couldn't remember anything. And he said, "Look at them." And I looked, and one was beautifully painted and the other one was a bit ropey.
Yeah.
And it suddenly came back to me that Richard Gregory had said to Christine Glanville, "Oh, Christine, you paint one and let Jamie paint the other." And she and I sat there and I tried to follow her every move. Bear in mind I was 10 and not terribly manually dexterous. But and those were the hands that were used for the series.
Great.
And because of Richard, he made a child feel like he could, do the same as Christine Glanville, who was an absolute master in every single way. And he remembered that and brought them and gave them to me, and I still got them now. So
fantastic,
amazing stuff.
That's brilliant, great. So we'll hear much more where that came from a little later on in a very brief interview with the late Richard Gregory a little later on. And we've also got Chris Dale will be here with his randomizer. Just a few more Facebook mentions about Richard from David Sisson. This one said, really sad, shocking news. I'd spoken to him at various Gerry Anderson events since the mid-1990s, chatting about models, puppets and props, a talented man who was always friendly and enthusiastic about his work. He will be greatly missed. Andrew Spooner, he said, I got the chance to work alongside him on Firestorm. It was a real career highlight. We were so busy, but he was always happy to chat and give me the benefit of his years of experience. And Charlotte Serple, assistant editor on Space Precinct, my wife, said Richard was always a welcome visitor to the cutting rooms on Space Precinct. He was a rare talent, so conscientious and always charming. And ain't that the truth?
Magic, yes, absolutely. Yeah. And it's, often you hear people after somebody's passed away, everybody comes out the woodwork and says, "Oh, he was really nice," or whatever. But there's so much genuine praise for Richard. It's just lovely.
Yeah, there really is. That's true.
So I've got two short tributes I'm going to read in a minute in the news section, which I will try to get through without stumbling across them.
Yeah.
But let's move on through, Richard, to your favourite section.
Bit of news.
Second only to the randomizer. Yes.
That's right.
It is the Gerry Anderson news.
It's the Gerry Anderson news.
Well, obviously we have to start the Gerry Anderson news with what we've already been talking about, which is the sad passing of Richard Gregory. Richard was involved in numerous Anderson productions, worked with Dad for a huge amount of time, was a great supporter of his, was there, in fact, was essentially part responsible for Terrahawks and Space Precinct getting made.
Right, yes.
Because for Terrahawks, Dad had some finance lined up from a Japanese company, I think, from memory. And they told a slight fib to the Japanese company to say that they were already in pre-production. And Dad rang Richard and said, "Richard, we've got this office space above the studio, and I really need you to come to the workshop and set up and be busy at work when the investors come to make it look like we're in pre-production." And Richard did that, played along, I think went out to dinner with them for a meal in the evening, and then the finance was signed and sealed.
Wow.
And then many years later, again, Richard became Dad's kind of number one guy for getting things up and running with pre-production. So he put together the Creons and the Tarns, put them together for going around the world, selling to places. And Richard was with Dad when they got the call to say that the finance had been agreed. There were two of them were sat across the desk from each other in an empty office with just a phone in the middle as they waited for the phone call to confirm they were going to production. So yes, and then all these years later would join me and be one of the key people in getting Firestorm up and running. But it's not just me singing Richard's praise. I just wanted to read this very, very little short tribute from Lindsay, who worked on Thunderbirds 1965. She said, in 2015, Richard Gregory handed me a wireless power drill and said, "Here, go ahead." I'd only used a drill once in my life before this, but it didn't matter. He was content to stay at the bottom of the ladder and simply be on hand to help while I did the fix for a special effects rig. That's the artist who built Christopher Nolan's Batmobile and many other timeless models and props. And he would constantly entrust me to do what many of his generation would deem a man's work. And that fact will stay with me the rest of my career. I can't quite believe I will never walk up to him on set again and hear him say, "All right, Linz?" Exactly what I said as well. So there you go. Lovely tribute from Lindsay. And many more, as you found, Richard.
I mean, she's right, of course. He would have been perfectly within his rights to have thrown his weight around with all the experience and skills that he had, but was always one to stand back and let someone else have a go. Yeah. Because that's how he started, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose he started off in boatyards doing fiberglassing when he was younger, but you just have to skip through his career and see stuff on Terrahawks, Deep Star 6, Neverending Story 3, Space Precinct, Walking with Dinosaurs, Walking with Beasts, Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, Casino Royale, The Dark Knight, Quantum of Solace, John Carter, Skyfall. One
of those would be all right, wouldn't it?
Yeah, any one of those would be good. And so many uncredited roles as well, where he was brought in as a consultant or brought in to do bits and pieces. He was the one guy who could build the Tumbler for Chris Nolan on The Dark Knight. Just amazing. Anyway, that's we'll carry on telling you about Richard because we want to know what you to know about his achievements. Yeah. But let's move on with some more news, some more positive news.
Let's have some more news. Yeah.
We need that too. I've seen this week, Richard, that Forces TV, who have been showing UFO for a couple of years, are about to start showing Space 1999.
I know, isn't that fantastic?
Yeah, so Space 1999 is going to be back on British television once again. It hasn't been on for, I want to say 10 years since it was on ITV4, possibly.
Wow, yeah, okay.
So it's great to have it back, so thank you Forces TV for doing that. If you want
so you can find them on Freeview, I know that much. I forget which channel number, but it's somewhere up in the 70s, I think, or 80s.
Oh, should we look it up, Richard?
Yeah, I think so, just so people know where to find it. But that's great. I mean, they've sort of been showing UFO on repeat for forever, haven't they? So it's a great opportunity to catch up with the old episodes.
So Forces TV is available on Freeview Channel 96, Sky 450, Freesat 165, and Virgin 277. So you can watch it on any of those and just search Forces TV online and you'll be able to find their schedule.
That's fantastic. I mean, this is why we say if you want to see a show on a station by a broadcaster, then drop them a line, email them, because if they get enough people saying they're interested, then of course they're going to show it.
Yeah.
I mean, I should imagine they've looked at the response they've got from showing UFO and thought, well, we need to continue, show some more Gerry Anderson.
Exactly, and if it's good for Space 1999, who knows what else they might show in the future.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, wouldn't it?
So we've got another bit of sort of time-bridging, unusual, new television Anderson-y news, Richard. So the Sunday that's just gone, well, that would be yesterday if you're listening to this on the day of release, saw an episode of Endeavour, which is a sort of Morse prequel. Is that the best way to describe it?
That's exactly what it is.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It's not only the best way to describe it, it is the only way to describe it.
It's the only way to describe it.
Now, that story features a case which crosses into a puppet studio on an industrial estate making kids' puppet shows.
Really?
Obviously, as a tribute to Century 21. And the guys behind Thunderbirds 1965 put together all sorts of stuff for it. Now, I haven't seen the full episode, but from the clips I've seen, it looks excellent.
Oh, great.
And I'm sure that everybody would have enjoyed it. So if you've seen that episode of Endeavour and enjoyed it, let us know. Podcast at gerryanderson.co.uk. Great that, there's such positivity and nostalgia about those old shows that at the essence of them is brought into storytelling in a completely different format, into a live action drama or a thriller, I suppose. Yeah.
That's great. It's rather like when Doctor Who turned up in Call the Midwife a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
William Hart. I think it was the Aztecs.
It was the Aztecs.
In a nunnery. I didn't really understand. I've never seen it before.
No, but it's still great when things like that happen. Lovely kind of nostalgic note.
That's right.
So there you go. Hope you saw and enjoyed Endeavour. And if you're a bit of a Stingray fan...
Aren't we all?
Yeah, we've had lots of requests to put the Stingray logo from the hoodie onto a T-shirt, and so your wishes are command. We've done that.
Cool.
And that should be available now or very shortly indeed. So
great.
There you go.
Nice.
Now, Richard, that's yes, we love a bit of merch. That's all the news I have for this week.
That was the news.
Look at you desperately trying to find the right key.
I know, one day I'll find it. Pick a key, any key. Now, just before we head on to some more some listener emails, which have been sent into podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk over the last few days, just time for a few more tweets, I think, or rather Facebook messages in this case, regarding the sad death of Richard Gregory, who left us last week. David Quilter from Space Precinct said he was a lovely guy, and I believe a wonderful teacher sharing his talent and enthusiasm. Christopher Daniels said he made the best version of the Cybermen from Earthshock in Doctor Who. Yes. Of course he did. Amongst other great props and models, he will be much missed. And Gavin Robertson, co-creator of the Thunderbirds FAB stage show, said fond memories of being at his workshop near Oxford in the early days of our Thunderbirds FAB stage show and feeling that delight in all things model-like that surrounded us there.
Yes.
One thing that I always felt with Richard was that he was never really at work. I remember during Space Precinct, you know, it felt like we were turning up to do a day's work. With him, he wasn't turning up to do a day's work. He was turning up to do stuff he loved.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it was ever really work for him, was it?
No, I mean, even when he was working very hard, like when he was doing the Firestorm pilot with us a couple of years ago, you know, I would turn up at his house between 5:15 and 5:30 every morning, 6 days a week for probably 8 weeks in total. Yeah. And he would come out and get into the car with increasing levels of groaning and crunching because of his poor knees, which are suffering a bit.
Ouch.
But yeah, no matter how knackered we were and how long the days had been, you know, there was always this kind of overwhelming sense of positivity and enjoyment. And even when one night, very late, having done a very long week, I think, in fact, it was a Thursday night, I think, from memory, on the way back, I got a flat tyre, and it was about 10 at night. We had to be rescued by the AA, waiting for hours on the hard shoulder because we weren't an emergency case, being taken to a really grotty place in High Wycombe to get the tyre changed. We were just so knackered, but he was still sat there chuckling along because it was all part of doing something that he wanted to do. So
that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Really lovely.
Lucky, really. I mean, and I'm sure he realised that. You know, he was one of us, we lucky few that are privileged enough to do. You know, our work is our hobby, really.
Exactly
That's what we enjoy, which is great. Yeah, lovely. Just another one quick here from on Twitter, actually. The Star Cops fan site. So sorry to hear that Richard Gregory, who also worked on Star Cops, has died. Richard Bignell tweeted, Richard had only recently appeared on the Doctor Who Season 18 Blu-ray set discussing the creation of his Cybermen with David Banks.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, indeed he has.
Yeah.
There we
See,
are.
so many bits in Star Cops, for example, uncredited on IMDb.
Sure.
And I think even on Doctor Who, he's not credited up there either. So,
yeah. Right.
Amazing.
Great. So there we are. So you can get in touch with us. You can hashtag us on Twitter at hashtag Gerry Anderson Podcast, or email us, as these many people have, at podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. I've got an email here from Jack Knoll.
We know Jack,
hello, Richard,
don't we, Richard?
Yeah, we do know Jack. Hi, Jack. I hope you're both extraordinarily well. I've just finished listening to Pod 34 and the first part of your interview with Marcus Hearn. Some fascinating stories, and I'm looking forward to more in part 2 of the interview. Yes, Jack, that'll be next week. I'm sorry to hear that Chris had such an uneventful time with Stingrays, Subterranean Sea on the Randomizer, but I was interested to learn that Jamie very much enjoyed the episode in his younger years. Yeah, in his younger years there, Jack being the operative phrase.
Thank you, Richard.
Vaguely inspired by that polite difference of opinion, I wanted to ask if there were any Anderson shows or episodes that Jamie or Richard did not enjoy in the past, but have grown a new appreciation of as time has plodded along. I also wanted to share with you an email within an email. How exciting, he says. We'll be the judge of that, Jack. I recently received this message from a reader of Security Hazard, my Gerry Anderson blog, where I've reviewed every episode of Thunderbirds in painstaking detail. The message reads, "Hi there, Security Hazard. Just finished watching through all the episodes with my boys, ages 2 to 7. I hooked them with the new show, that's the Thunderbirds Are Go, and then reeled them in with brand new puppet Thunderbirds, as they've been calling them. They had a blast, and I did too. So thanks to reading along with Security Hazard." That was from Chris, Soren, Leto, and Blake. But that was also embedded in an email from Jack, who says, "I hope Chris and his family are listeners to the Gerry Anderson podcast and that his kids will continue their Supermarination education." From Jack.
Brilliant. I think that's the first.
Rather labyrinthine.
It's the first email within an email we've ever had.
Oh, yeah.
So
can we, do you think, get an email within an email within an email for the next podcast?
I don't know how that would happen, but let's hope. If you can help us with this quest, then please do send your email within an email within an email to podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk.
That's great. How lovely they're calling old Thunderbirds brand new puppet Thunderbirds.
Yes. And loving it.
Great.
And loving it.
Yeah.
See, boys aged 2 to
right.
7. Perfect. It's absolutely brilliant.
Absolutely right.
Yeah, so thanks, Jack, for doing that work. Shows that I didn't enjoy in the past and have grown an appreciation for. Now, you could say Joe 90 for me, I suppose. Although
Yeah.
I'm still not a fan of his. I have grown to appreciate certain aspects. And I guess, for me, the main one would be Secret Service, because when I first saw that when I was 8 or 9, I thought, this is so weird. I don't really like it. It's not exciting enough. It's not sci-fi enough. You know, it's a priest driving around in an old car. But it's great and quirky and beautifully done, and I do appreciate it now. So there you go. So Secret Service is probably mine.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
But I'd also say perhaps I ought to get to know and get to like some of the very oldest stuff. I've always shied away from your Fireball XL5s and your torches. And
Well, everybody
twizzles.
should shy away from torches forever.
But, maybe I should give it another go.
Yeah.
I don't
Should
know.
we watch an episode of Supercar at some point, Richard?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's get very drunk first. That'll help, I think.
Not that we condone heavy drinking at the Gerry Anderson
No,
podcast.
nor watching Supercar.
Nor watching... Yes, neither of those, probably. I have an email from Anthony from Down Under.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
a regular listener and emailer to the show. We asked people in a recent Gerry Anderson newsletter what their hopes are for Secret Service's 50th anniversary, which is this September. And it's a bit of an odd one, isn't it? There's only 13 episodes. It's a lesser known show and probably lesser loved. Anthony made some suggestions, though. He said, "I would love a downloadable audio special starring Richard James speaking Unwinese."
Oh, much joy to the eyeballed.
Or there's your audition done, successful. Or a Secret Service dictionary of Unwinese.
Now that's a good idea.
Which has a Bible-like cover with a secret compartment inlay picture card like the one from the TV series. Now you're getting quite niche, Anthony, here. Referring back to the podcast, he says, "The banter between you two is a highlight each week and Richard is a good sport." Why is he saying that?
Because I'm the butt of your jokes. That's why he says that.
Oh, I see. Right, okay. I wonder when his album of idents is coming out, including the hit single That Was the News. One day he might be on the tube or in a taxi and he'll find his meme is a ringtone.
Imagine.
I think that is quite unlikely.
No, it's going to happen, Jamie. Come on.
Okay, fine.
I'm going to be sat there one day and I'll hear, "That was the news," and someone will be getting a text. It's going to happen.
Good luck with that.
Emma Paulson. Actually, no, before we move on to Emma's email, that's an interesting one, isn't it, what you were saying about Secret Service? That's a difficult one to mark. It's very niche. You can't... Or a lovely idea to release a Secret Service dictionary of Unwinese, but who's going to buy it?
Who's going to write
People
it?
would buy it.
Who's going to
People
write
love
it?
Who's going to write it? That's right. It's a difficult one. I assume you've got something up your sleeve, have you?
My sleeves are rolled up, Richard, so... well, there'll be something going on, I'm sure, but we're just quite limited as to what you can do. And also, because there's only 13 episodes, too.
That's right.
It's a tough one. But we'll do our best, Anthony, but don't expect a dictionary of Unwinese.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Emma Paulson then says, "Hello both. Having listened to and thoroughly enjoyed Liz Morgan's interview over pods 33 and 34, where she spoke of voicing characters, and in the spirit of a good Chris Dale top 5, I've compiled my list of top 5 Supermarination voice artists." Oh, great. Such thoughts enter one's head when waiting for a toddler to fall asleep of an evening, says Emma. Okay, so, mostly for their talent and versatility in providing a range of character voices. Number 5 would be Shane Rimmer, when one voice is enough, in brackets, rather harsh. Number 4, Liz Morgan. Number 3, Robert Easton. Number 2, David Graham. And first and foremost, Ray Barrett. Despite not having a large repertoire of character voices, I had to include Shane Rimmer as Scott Tracy. Is such an iconic voice. Each of the Supermarionation shows really did have such perfectly cast actors to help bring the characters to life, says Emma. Each voice is so distinct and memorable that you can identify the character without needing to see them on screen.
Indeed.
Like so many have said before, thank you, Jamie, for keeping your father's legacy alive. I represent another family brought up on Anderson shows when they were originally shown in the 60s. 90s repeats, and now, with the wonders of home entertainment, I can enjoy watching my 3-year-old son count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I was so pleased to make it to the Firestorm premiere back in October, and look forward to enjoying a full series in the near future. Ultramarination is go. Best wishes to you both, and that's from Emma Paulson. How lovely, yeah. Nice top 5 of Supermarionation character voices there and actors. That's great. Josh Long got in touch on Twitter with his personal top 10 of themes. We were speaking about Gerry Anderson themes in the last podcast.
Yes, and you did your amazing countdown.
I did. He suggested we do one of those every week. And I think that's a fantastic idea, but it's up to you, dear listener, to give us the top 10. So have you got a top 10 favourite craft, a top 10 favourite characters, top 10 favourite shows, top 10 favourite directors? Who knows?
Writers.
If you want to tweet... Sorry?
Writers,
yeah, exactly. If you've got a top 10 you want to share with us that I can read out, just hashtag us Gerry Anderson Podcast and tweet it out there so I can see it, and we'll present it in the next podcast. Be fun.
can't wait. I'm sure with your
hang on, it give you a chance to look at your phone.
That's true. Yeah, I was reading emails again just then. Thank you. Well, it's just difficult to actually take time off to do anything.
I know, spinning so many plates.
Anyway, right. Yeah. Last email for today comes from the US of A.
Aha.
And from Colin Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
He writes, "Dear illustrious and esteemed gentlemen."
Well. Has it come to the right address?
I was going to say, I think it may have gone awry. He was probably sending it to the Benji and Nick show.
It must be that.
He says, "I know you asked us to use Twitter to share our favourite Gerry Anderson themes, but I have a short music-related story which is better related by email."
Ooh.
While pretty much everything Barry Gray composed is excellent, my top 3 in ascending order of preference would have to be Thunderbirds, UFO, and Space 1999, brackets, the first year, not that
Obviously.
Derek Wadsworth travesty from year 2.
No.
Well, no. I'm sure some people like the Derek Wadsworth
Each
one.
to his own.
That was another one where Derek wrote the melody without lyrics, but to sound like the words. Space 1999. It's a funny thing, isn't it? The composers of that area used to do.
That's right.
Anyway, he continues without musical interjections from me. I attended a concert by the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra a couple of years ago featuring music from science fiction movies and TV shows. Being American, this was mostly music from John Williams and some Alan Silvestri and Jerry Goldsmith mixed in.
Oh, yeah.
We were about 3/4 into the concert and they'd begun a sequence of TV themes. We went from The Land of the Giants to Twilight Zone, and then to my surprise and delight, the unmistakable opening drums of Space 1999.
Cool.
I recognised it instantly and felt real goosebumps as the entire orchestra came in and played the full opening theme. I'd never heard it live before and could barely restrain myself from jumping up with applause before they segued into the next theme in the segment. I've always enjoyed Space 1999's theme, but hearing it played live by a full orchestra was a true revelation. I just wish somebody would devote an entire concert to Barry Gray's music. I'd certainly be one of the first in line for tickets. Sincerely from Colin Hunter in Maryland, USA.
Well, thank you for that, Colin.
Thanks, Colin.
Nice.
Well, there was a Barry Gray centenary concert a while back, wasn't there? And there have been rumblings, vague rumblings, about the potential for a Barry Gray concert in the future.
Oh, lovely.
So,
yeah, that'd be great.
Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
But it would be great.
Keep your ears peeled.
Yeah. Well, all those themes were so grandiose and overdone in so many ways for a TV show.
Yeah, absolutely.
They perfectly reflected the scale and intention of the productions in terms of being epic and filmic, even though really they were, especially with the puppet shows, quite small scale affairs.
Yes.
So,
but that reflected really the scope and the vision of behind the shows, didn't it? all Gerry's work, you could say, is small scale, but actually operates on a much more sort of epic canvas, doesn't it? And I suppose Barry Gray's scores were perfect for that.
Part of the reason it works so well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Great. So thank you very much for those lovely emails. Do remember, you can get in touch with us on Twitter, hashtag us Gerry Anderson Podcast, or email us for next time at podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. We want to hear your top 10s so we could read them out. Also, I should say, don't forget to subscribe to us on whichever platform you're listening to us on, and to rate and review us. That would be lovely. And to share us with your friends so they can hear us as well. Unapologetically, we are offering tribute to Richard Gregory, who passed away last week, far too early. So I'm just picking up a few tweets here. This one from our very own Chris Dale, who said, sad to hear about the passing of Richard Gregory, who contributed so much to both the Gerry Anderson and Doctor Who universes, plus countless others. John Schoonrad said, such infectious enthusiasm, nearly always smiling and kind-hearted. We worked together on some really great jobs, Space Precinct for one, and we first met at the Jim Henson workshop and hit it off. Adrian Andrews that says Richard certainly made his mark on this world and brought so much joy to so many. A sad loss indeed, but working in the business I work in, I can guarantee that he will make his presence very much felt during work on future productions.
Absolutely.
Absolutely he will. Of course he will. Great. So much more where that came from, of course. As I say, unapologetically, we're paying tribute to Richard Gregory throughout this whole podcast. I'm sure you can understand why. And if you don't know anything about his work, just Google him. Have a look on IMDb, and you'll find all sorts of amazing stuff.
The sad thing is you won't there find all of the incredible things that he did. I mean, you've mentioned the 80s Cybermen that he designed.
Yeah.
And fairly recently, when he'd been going through his storage unit, he discovered the original Cyber Leader helmet, which he was busy working on restoring, and also the original chest unit that Andric had rubbed his gold star into in Earthshock. I mean, some amazing finds in there. He had stuff from Tomb Raider and all sorts of places. And not too long ago, I'd been to his family home, which he was working on restoring. And as with everywhere that Richard lived, it was like a giant sort of man cave come toy box. So even though the house was, there's a lot of work still going on, I walk inside and there's a full suit of armour stood in the corner from some production that he's worked on. Daleks everywhere, various characters, props hanging from the wall. I mean, he had a fantastic collection of toys and was always, I say toys, I mean amazing movie props, but but kind of, it's like surrounding yourself with toys and props, which actually we all do to some degree, don't we, Richard? I mean,
certainly
my office where I'm sat is stuffed full of bits and pieces, including, to my left currently, the original Zelda from Terrahawks, which Richard had given me for a couple of events recently. And he'd been retrofitting with animatronics so that her eyes moved and stuff like that. Anyway, so constantly doing bits and pieces. And he'd even dug up an original sub from Deep Star 6, which he thought had been lost.
Gosh.
And loads more bits and pieces too. Just so many shows. And I hope that in time, somebody's going to put together a big kind of compendium of all the stuff he did, because he's one of those unsung heroes of entertainment, I think.
Yeah, absolutely right. And there are a lot of them, aren't there? I mean, they really are the backbone of the sort of the British TV and film industry over the last 30, 40, 50 years and beyond, probably. Yeah.
Amazing. In fact, best in the business was applied to him in so many ways and so many skills. You don't often hear that about people in one area, let alone multiple ones. And Steve Begg, in fact, said that the miniature plane that Richard created for, I think, Casino Royale was the best miniature he has ever seen in his entire career. And Steve has worked on some amazing miniatures. So,
hasn't he just?
Yeah, praise indeed from someone very high up in the industry.
Absolutely right, yeah. Terry Adlam got in touch with us. Terry, who we know and love, of course. I worked with Richard in Terrahawks, and he made the original Dick Spanner armature model. He was one of the hardest working and nicest guys in the business, and it was always good to meet up with him again at the various conventions. Fred McNamara says, I had the pleasure of seeing him in action at Andacon 2015 during puppet demonstrations. Benji Clifford says, such a talented man whose contributions to the industry speak for themselves. And Andrew T. Smith, heartbroken. He said, over the sudden death of my beloved friend Richard Gregory, impossible to sum up in a tweet. He was erudite, passionate, loved a good conspiracy, spun a brilliant tale, and he always wanted to know that everybody was in a good place. For a crew, he was glue, which is a lovely phrase.
Excellent summary. He's quite right. Yeah,
exactly. Great. So perhaps time then, on that note, to hear the brief interview you conducted with him in your garden.
Now, I mean, this was
afternoon.
Yeah, this was never meant to be played out like this.
Of course.
It was more for my own interest, really, just because we were having a great chat, and suddenly I decided to record it. So just as some background, through the late 80s and early 90s, actually, despite the fact that Dad had done this huge volume of work that changed the entertainment landscape in the UK and beyond, he was kind of pretty down on his luck through the late 80s and was having a bit of a rough time, and he went through a phase of directing adverts to get by. In a kind of post-Terrahawks and Space Police world, Richard Gregory was one of those who stuck by him throughout. A time when I think a lot of the time they were working either at Bray or out of a tiny shed at Pinewood Studios right next to the Bond stage. You had the giant sort of 5-story Bond stage, and next to it a little long rickety old wooden shed that where the wind sort of blew through it.
Perfect.
But they would do all sorts of things, from Pizza Hut and Weetabix adverts featuring Captain Scarlet and Titan, a re-sculpted Titan by Christine Glanville, who I think Richard mentions in this brief chat, through to adverts for the Royal Bank of Scotland, Swinton Insurance. Endless ads, and we just started talking about some of the technicalities of it. So those adverts are all on the Gerry Anderson YouTube channel, if you want to go and see them. But for now, and with a few interjections by me for explanation, here is me and Richard having a chat about some Gerry Anderson adverts. Hello, podcast listeners. Jamie here. I'll try and keep these interjections to as few as possible. So first up, Richard's talking about some Scotch video ads that were done by Dad in the very late 80s and early 90s from memory. Archie, a stop-motion skeleton, celebrated various past triumphs in his life with the help of Scotch videotapes. So here's Richard talking about Archie.
The original Archie was between third and half scale, from what I remember.
But made by somebody else?
Yeah, I think it was made by Chris Lyons up in Bristol, because I think Aardman were sort of associated with the original ads.
Right.
I'm not sure on that, but I'm certainly pretty certain that's what it was. And when your dad started doing the ads, they inherited the Archie puppet. And being that size, there was a lot of inertia in the puppet, which meant when you moved it, there was a lot of weight for the joints to take, so there wasn't enough friction in the joints. And then one day they went to do another ad, and they opened the MDF box which Archie was in, which was an MDF coffin which Archie lived in. Yeah. And they opened the box and Archie had disappeared. So someone obviously at some point had thought, well, if I take it out of the box, no one's even going to notice. And
so somebody nicked Archie?
Yes, somebody stole Archie.
Okay.
And
you made the new one.
And your dad approached me and said, do you think you could make a new one that's the scale, obviously, as well, with being that size, meant the sets were really big, so you had to get onto the sets, you had to put rigs into flying because he wouldn't support his own weight. And then your dad said, well, if we make him more like more manageable size, and a good size to always work with set wise and scale wise is the Submarination size, because it's good all round as far as models and access to sets. And I thought on that scale we can definitely make him self-supporting, so you can literally get in there and not worry about rigs, just freely animate him, so I did that, and everybody was very pleased with him.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it was a nicer puppet to work with.
I'm sure then that one must be the dancing down the steps.
That's right, yeah, it was.
Yeah, so they did the World Cup one, Armstrong, and dancing down the steps finished final.
That's right, yeah.
Okay, because somewhere I think at home we've got this. Steve must have done the concept art for the World Cup one where Archie's in like a sci-fi living room.
Yeah, that's right.
And we've still got that out there. Following on from the success of Dick Spanner, Tennant Pilsner asked Dad and his crew to create some adverts for their beer with a character called Lou Tennant. who was a detective in the style of Spanner, and that's who we talked about next.
Lieutenant. Yeah, I'm guessing you built Lou.
Yeah, but I think I did two puppets. As I said, recently found the completely decayed remains of one, which has been the acid from the latex has basically just turned him completely to a corroded heap, basically. Yeah. But yeah, there was that. A lot. I think there's a lot of things that got to just come out of the woodwork. Maybe, yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing what else turns up. I've got definitely. Dad's got the miniature cans and glasses of Tenants.
Oh right, yeah.
Still at home.
Okay, yeah.
What? Kit Kat advert you'd built Scott with Christine.
Yeah. We were already building him anyway, and then the Kit Kat ad came along and we finished him off, because I remember having a conversation with Christine over years as to which her favourite puppy that she did was, and it was Scott. So I said, okay, well, have you got some original parts? And so we were building Scott anyway, but then out of the blue came the Kit Kat ad, and it was perfect. So yeah.
And then Weetabix, you think you built Titan for that?
Yeah, Christine sculpted a new Titan.
Yeah. Which you've still got now, right?
Yeah, I've still got him, yeah.
Okay. Exchange of Mart. Did you build the costume for Andy?
The big costume. I don't know whether I've got the Allen head.
Have you?
From Dire Straits, which is another thing. This is why I've got to start getting rid of this stuff, because
getting rid.
And there's going to be more of this. It's when I say because I'm.
You mean move it to your new workshop?
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
Fair enough. There's another advert on my list. The Domestos one.
Yeah. On that, built the Domestos bottles.
Yeah.
I did. There was various problems with that technically as well, and I ended up making the foams, the foam bodies and things, because we couldn't get that quite right. So I wasn't really a foam technician, but I thought, well, I might as well have a go and see what we can do with it. And it seemed to work quite well by the time I was making it.
The Macintosh is rigged with wire, isn't it?
Yeah.
As well, because I remember extensively playing with that as a kid.
Yeah.
Messing around with it. Where was that? Do you remember where that was shot?
That might have been Bray Studios.
Yeah. All I can remember is a warehouse frontage, the corrugated stuff. That must be Bray.
It might have been shot down around the South Dock in Pinewood. There was a shed to the side. There was a shed to the side of the South Dock in Pinewood, at the back of one of the facilities houses. Because one of the Kodak facility was there, and I think around the back of that there was a workshop, little studio, which people used for both.
Yeah.
And I think it was in there because that's where the Burger King ads were.
Okay. With the back of the burger.
Yeah.
Is that where the toilet duck ad was as well then? Did you do that?
Toilet duck? No, I didn't. I don't think I did the toilet duck.
Stop motion germs under the toilet rim or something. I can't remember. Yeah, it's weird. The things you remember from being a kid.
Yeah.
But I'm sure Dom stuff. Maybe you were making things in Shed 11 and it was carried over to.
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it?
It is. The total thing is, when it came down to doing Domestos bottles, and it was we just turn them out and that's it basically. And as long as the product looks good enough for what the agency wanted, I really didn't care much about it other than that. Do you know what I mean?
Richard, that's not the professional.
It's TV ads. I don't like TV ads.
Yeah. Do you I'm sure I remember. Was Steve Begg on that Domestos ad?
I think he was, yeah.
I'm sure he told me when I was a kid. There's a bit where Dom goes into the bathroom and the door slams and he has a punch up with the germs which you don't see. Yeah. And there's like a rubber door
moving in and out.
Yeah, which is like
flexing. Yeah.
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 And I as a kid, I couldn't work out how it was done. And then Steve just shattered the magic and went,
"It's a rubber door."
Rubber.
The final ad that Richard talks about is the Royal Bank of Scotland advert, which you can find on the Gerry Anderson YouTube channel. It's a bunch of stick figures walking around with very pointy legs in the style of Giacometti sculptures. And the idea is that one of the figures works out how to make shoes, gets a loan from RBS, and then sets up a business, and everybody's wearing shoes suddenly. But it was a huge challenge to animate it, and it was Richard who came up with the solution, and here's how it worked.
Thanks.
But
Steve.
it's the Royal Bank of Scotland ads with the Giacometti, and the other day I did find the parts of the Stone Man as well. So with the hat one,
Oh, see, I can't remember the hat one.
found him as well. He was really good. The main character. I found the main character from that one.
Why did they have the hats? I can't...
He was a sculpture walking along, feeling very sad, and he walked past what looked like a display in an art gallery, and in the middle was this stone sculpture, which he goes in and buys with a loan from the Royal Bank of Scotland. And the next day you see him walking along, and he's wearing a hat.
He's all cheerful because he's wearing a hat.
Hat.
Not quite as clever as the shoes one, is it? The shoes was better.
But that was all with John Webster, who was a very creative agency guy. Right, it was his own agency.
Yeah. Okay. And how did you make them stand up at the end?
Well, the Giacometti men. I made
magnets?
there was a problem because they had so many that they couldn't actually fly them with so many wires and crisscrossing and possible animate. So I designed a system by which you could make a cut in the 10-test floor and push in a brass blade with a square block on the end of it, and at that point the block would fit in the end of the legs. So, but you inserted that on the last frame just as the foot comes down.
Yeah.
So basically, and then of course as the end of the leg lifts off, you take it out.
Yeah.
But all the time it's in there, it's covered by the fact that, but the actual metal plate pushed into the tin tank, and you could obviously, as the thing was just painted white, you could, if there was a, literally, the saw cut, the cut was made with a scalpel blade to make it as tight as possible to the plate. So it literally acted like a clutch. But at that point, the figure was completely unsupported. It could have one leg off the ground, but it would, because it was locating on a square block into a square tube, it was really quite. It was an extremely good fit.
So it's solid.
So solid, so it wouldn't go left or right. It would go, but you obviously had to make the cut in exactly the direction you wanted the figure to walk in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like, you're going that way, make a cut literally under the leg at the last point, put the plate in, and then so it was doing it as it came off one block, it would go onto the next one. Yeah. And you could literally touch it in between frames if you needed to.
Yeah.
To get rid of it. Yeah.
You clever bastard.
Yeah, but it worked really well because at that point you could do that then, so you could have 20 people walking.
And you did. I'm sure in the first bit there were tons of them.
Yeah.
Walking around.
Yeah, and everybody was panicking, thinking, well, we can't animate this because you're gonna have to have 20 sets of wires going across at different angles right across the set.
Yeah.
But no, you didn't need any at all with that.
Awesome.
It worked really well.
All right. I'll scribble that down.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
So very short and sweet, and a little bit out of context. So if there's anything there that doesn't quite make sense to you, especially implore you to go and watch the Royal Bank of Scotland stop motion advert, because the clever stuff he did in order to make those characters walk when they didn't have any feet on tiny little sort of stilt legs, without having to fly them on wires. It was just a genius solution. And you heard him having a good chuckle there about various things, and me calling him a clever bastard because he was a clever bastard. It just the most amazing solutions, and I saw that with Dad throughout the years. Dad, especially on things like Space Precinct, I think in the early days, he said, what I don't want to do for Space Precinct is go down the route of having human actors with ridges on their heads or just have their skin painted a different colour. We've got to go a bit above and beyond that. And it was Richard who came up with the designs and the methodology for doing that and for making it work, to have those full prosthetic animatronic heads.
Yeah, incredible.
So that was just a little solution there. And for Firestorm, for the pilot, I said, Richard, we've got this tiny budget, which in most cases wouldn't even pay for 2 hours shooting on a TV show or a film.
Yeah,
and he came up with ways to reuse sets, to do stuff with just a couple of sheets of MDF that I wouldn't have even thought possible.
Incredible.
So constantly problem solving, constantly generating ideas, and always doing so without complaining, without sort of showing that there was any element of struggle going into it. You knew there was
Absolutely.
effort going into it, but whenever he came up with a solution, he would just sort of smile and say, "Right, we'll do that then."
Yeah.
No sense of arrogance or even pride necessarily, but the pride, if it was there, was very, very quiet indeed. So
Yeah, lovely, isn't it? And I just remember, from Space Precinct, I think he was probably the second or third person I met throughout the whole sort of audition process. So he was right there at the very beginning. I had to have a live cast done, and for the part of Oren. And I remember him from the very beginning. His enthusiasm. He was so in love with the project already. We hadn't even got off the ground. We hadn't even started thinking about it, really. I mean, I think we were still probably 4, 5, 6 weeks away from getting on the studio floor, and he was full of, enthusiasm
well, but for him, he'd been working on it since Space Police in the mid-'80s, and then it probably had been working with Dad on various bits and pieces for 2 or 3 years prior to production. So, for him. But to maintain that enthusiasm is normally a producer's job. But he was always there as a kind of major support to Dad for all those projects, and always kind of willing him on and egging him on, and like I said, problem solving. So that sounds
great.
very Richard to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And back to Twitter, a few more comments. Paul tweeted, "I once spent a brilliant day being shown around the studios at Pinewood by him as I interviewed him about the FX for Space Precinct. He was great company and talked passionately about his field of work." Mike tweeted, "Incredibly talented man whose legacy speaks for itself and who'll forever live on in the minds of literally millions of people." Tom Guttridge, I think, was a producer on Space Precinct for Mentor, wasn't he?
Yeah, exec producer.
Says Richard was a wonderful, generous, charming genius who'll be sadly missed by everyone he worked with. Such a legacy, though. Absolutely. That's what's really coming to the fore, isn't it? What he's left behind. I mean, far too early, of course, but boy, has he left us some stuff. Stephen Le Riviere, who we know well from the Thunderbirds 1965 project, said, "Happy to see so much of an outpouring of love for Richard Gregory. He was responsible for so many well-loved elements of so many films and TV shows that brought so much joy to people's lives." Yeah, I think that sort of sums it up.
That's a pretty good summary, I'd say.
Yeah, it's great. And how lucky for us to have got to know him, especially you, Jamie, over, almost your entire life, really. He's been a constant for you.
Yeah, well, I think my earliest memory must be when I was about 5. I certainly met him prior to that, but a bit of an impression where Dad drove me for a surprise to go and see something special. We sat in the car, and I think even then, that would have been, I guess around 1989, 1990 probably. Dad had a car phone because he loved his technology, as Marcus Hearn mentioned in our previous podcast. Yeah. And he got lost, and he was ringing somebody. I didn't know who it was because it was all supposed to be a surprise. And he said, "Yeah, look, I'm on this road. It's at a bit of a funny angle, and I can see some little one-story buildings down there." And then he said, "Oh, I can see you. You're waving, right? Okay, fine. We'll be down in a minute." So we turned round, did an awkward sort of Austin Powers 12-point turn in the road, came down, and I was thinking, what's going on? It's quite a hot, sunny day, and it was a big sort of concrete car park. Anyway, as we pulled up, I could see a movie Dalek from Doctor Who in the car park, and I thought, "What? This is amazing." And Dad opened the door, and there was Richard, stood with his arm round a movie Dalek at his then workshop. And he said, "So, do you want to meet the Dalek, Jamie?" And I went up and I was so in awe, I was just staring at it. And then he said, "Do you want to go inside it?"
Wow.
Oh, so he was responsible for my first time sitting inside a Dalek. And somewhere I've got a photo of it. It's a rubbish old Polaroid of me in I think it was a red and black one. But a very happy memory. And then afterwards, going into his workshop, and again, the same thing, seeing the shelves lined with toys, TARDISes, Daleks, props, guns, creatures.
Amazing.
I mean, and they were all created by him, and that was back in 89, 90, somewhere around there.
Sure.
Just amazing.
Incredible.
So yes, very happy memories from beginning to end, which I shall always treasure.
Of course, exactly. That's lovely. And because of that brief interview with Richard this week, part 2 of Marcus Hearn's interview will be in the next podcast next week. So don't worry about that. You can catch up with Marcus next time.
Exactly. Much more from Marcus and his stories of Dad in due course.
Great.
Now, Richard, shall we turn to your absolute favourite part of the podcast?
Yeah. Let me just get comfortable. Put my feet up. Got my coffee.
Yeah. Pipe and slippers.
So, I'm ready. Got my slippers, got my pipe.
Excellent. Good. Right, well then, here's Chris Dale with the randomizer.
Let's wheel him in.
Still nothing there either. Oh, no, maybe it was this one. Captain Gray, if you could try the next tape, and Captain Scarlet, could you just wind that first tape back again? It is here. I know it's here. We've got to find it somewhere.
We have every available man working on it, sir.
What in blue blazes is going on here?
Oh, Colonel White. Hello. Yes, well,
I'm waiting for an explanation.
well, as you can see, got the old randomizer here. We've actually already made the selection for today, but I wanted to just sort of go back over a few previous Gerry Anderson podcasts. A listener emailed in specifically to mention this particular episode. I wanted to play the clip if we could find it.
Sir, I think I've got it.
Oh, I understand we now have that clip.
Lieutenant, let the Colonel hear from 904 feet.
The Fireball XL5 Club. Oh? Yeah.
That's Jamie and Richard, Colonel.
I see.
I know.
The club gets its name from the fact that the Invasion episode of Fireball XL5 was playing on the television when the earthquake hit. And that all of us were watching the show at the time. In fact, it took me almost 30 years to find out how the episode ended. Our power went out just as the aliens landed, and it wasn't until I picked up a fuzzy VHS copy at a convention in the 90s that I was able to see the entire episode. Oh, how wonderful.
That's the one. Thank you. Stop it right there. Yes, well, as you may have guessed, today's episode on the randomizer is indeed Fireball XL5, Invasion Earth, and I hope this time we may actually get to the end of it.
You haven't heard the last of this, I can assure you of that.
So here we are, back with Fireball XL5 for Invasion Earth. Now, this was an episode that was not released on VHS back in the early 1990s when ITC Home Video were putting out the show, and I managed to pick up a couple of tapes, Volume 4 and Volume 6. This is an episode that I seem to recall being relatively good, let down by, unfortunately, a sign of the time in which it was made, which we'll get to later.
It's a new one on me.
Sir, it could be atomic particles from a space explosion.
Yeah, I didn't mention that, Lieutenant, because, it's the obvious explanation. Which sectors are you
I
studying?
was going to make a point that was such dodgy science, but I think they've saved themselves there with the fact that Zero didn't have any idea what was going on.
Message understood, Lieutenant. XL-18, signing off.
Oh, XL-18. I'm sure you're going to have a long and successful career just like XL-5. I do love how quickly this episode just throws us into the heart of the action. That sound is, yes, that's the unfortunate thing we'll get to later. And that's it. Whoever that guy was...
It blew up, sir. The XL-18 blew up.
...is dead, which is a very rare thing to happen in Fireball XL5. It happened to, like, aliens occasionally who got rightfully blown up. There's an alien spaceship lurking in this cloud of gas. But it was very rare for the show to just go, yep, human being, dead. You could argue that he... No, I was going to say you could argue that he ejected with oxygen pills and could still be alive out there, but no, that guy's dead.
XL-24. He should rendezvous with a smoke cloud in 3 hours' time, sir.
This begins to look like a job for Colonel Zodiac.
I've lost contact with the XL-5.
But let's send in a few more expendable people first, just to make sure.
Oh, come in, Doctor.
Who's this guy? The XL5 crew are visiting this...
I've just about completed my work here, Colonel.
This colony. Venus is inoculating various people against a disease. The commander of this base is just very goofy.
Now, will you please roll up your sleeve?
Oh, say, are you really gonna use that thing on me?
You woman, you think you're a doctor? Oh, you whatever next. He's got such a wide, grinning mouth.
You haven't been able to contact Earth.
This guy actually looks like a repainted alien puppet, possibly. He's got very strange cheekbones, and as I said, the wide mouth and slightly bulging eyes. I would be very suspicious of him. Bit of reused music here from Four Feather Falls, actually. This piece was reused from.
Oh, come
Oh, go away! Oh! Oh, he's collapsed! Oh, I mean... Oh, what a shame.
He should be all right in a couple of days.
Does that mean he's not going to be featured in this episode? Oh, please say he's not going to be featured in this episode. And again, going back to what I said in Mystery of the TA2, I love that the black and white shows, well, Fireball mainly, has this wonderful sense of atmosphere. When this cloud just rolling in over Space City with this weird music playing behind it. It's rather unsettling. Oh dear. Oh dear. At the Zero House, they're watching what appears to be a futuristic version of Jukebox Jury, evidently hosted by zombies. It's the Ma Doughty puppet from the Granitoid tanks, and a couple of others that were probably used in other episodes, but they just looked dead and soulless. It was like Children of the Damned channel.
Sorry to disturb your sleep, Commander.
I wasn't sleeping, do you hear?
Yes, sir.
Why did they never invite John Bluthal back to do anything after Fireball? He's so great.
XL-24 calling Space City. Range now 3-2, 0
Yeah, Paul Maxwell was not the best at doing other voices. There's no disguising the fact that that pilot is essentially Steve Zodiac just holding his nose.
So much interference going on. Seems that cloud's causing.
I do love these swooping shots of these Fireball ships approaching this cloud, though.
Interceptors at the ready. Funny. I can hear a sort of chattering.
Oh, no. Not again.
Maybe you should have warned your pilot before you sent him into something that you know is potentially going to kill him. I mean, he's dopey enough that he probably wouldn't care. He's got a very... Oh, there it goes. XL, whatever that one was. He's got a very dopey expression on his face.
XL-24 destroyed.
R.I.P. Captain Dopey.
Order all available craft to that area.
What? What? You've lost 2 ships to that cloud already. You know it's going to destroy anything else you send there. Now you want to send everything else you've got to it?
Just exploded.
Not a good plan. Not a good plan at all.
I'm positive something came out of that cloud just before the explosion.
I can play the recording back.
Make it in slow motion.
Let's watch our comrade's death in all its grisly detail.
Yes, that's a missile.
Okay, we've seen enough.
It's a flying thing that destroys things. It's a missile. Well done, Venus. Again proving how invaluable you are.
What are we sitting here for? Prepare the interceptors.
I do like how casual the destruction of Fireball's whatever it was, 19 and 24? Whatever. It's so rare that we ever saw any ships aside from XL5 and XL1, and now suddenly we have 2, and it's just like, as soon as we see them, they're gone.
No closer, Matt.
Very weird. But it does also help to make the Fireball universe feels very large, I think. It's silly, but it feels like a very expansive world where XL5 is supposedly the only ship in Sector 25, and they see so many weird things over the course of 39 episodes. And you have to imagine there are other XLs out there having equally strange adventures. Oh. Oh, they have a language decoder machine, which is essentially just a reel-to-reel tape machine with language decoder stuck on it and a big sticker.
An invasion fleet.
And we're powerless to stop them.
Venus, if you want to just surrender, then go ahead and wave a white flag out the window. Oh, meanwhile, Space City is looking very atmospheric, covered in fog.
It's just hanging in the sky, sir.
Obviously, Lieutenant. Which at least proves it's no ordinary cloud.
Wait, what? I had to think carefully about that. It's hanging in the sky, which means it's not an ordinary cloud. Ah, do clouds in XL5 land not stay in the sky? I know they move, but that cloud was moving too.
Commander! Lieutenant, what are you doing?
What?
Nothing happened.
Of course not, sir. You don't think I would have done that if it'd been working, do you? I was just trying to tell you that the ray guns aren't working either.
How did you realize that? You just reached into the drawer, aimed it at Zero and pulled the trigger. That was a heck of a gamble you just took for absolutely no reason, Lieutenant. Well, meanwhile, the XL5 crew are just sitting around. Oh, they're worrying about Zuni, who has contracted...
But this is ridiculous.
Relax, Venus.
Misalignment, or whatever you want to call it, of the lip syncing there. Venus said her line and then started to say some of Matt's as well.
Maybe the Earth's last chance. We can't land...
Unless she's a master ventriloquist, of course. She has to be good at something. Law of averages says she's got to have at least one thing she can do right. You'd think as well that this invasion fleet... It doesn't necessarily feel, this episode, as perhaps spectacular as it should do, because this invasion of Earth by these 3 ships that have landed at Space City... Oh, sorry, 4 ships. It is essentially we are invading Earth via Space City. We're not going to any of the major world capitals. Space City is where it's at. We're going to march in there and declare conquest.
This is it, Lieutenant.
Oh, but that's very sweet that Commander Zero has got his hand on 90's shoulder. He loves him, really.
Okay, Robert, you don't have to keep repeating yourself.
Don't have to keep repeating myself. Anyway, here come our guest aliens for this episode. And this is the point where I think this story develops a major problem. You can probably hear what my issue with the episode is.
I shall talk in your language, Commander Zero. What's the idea?
So these aliens, of course there's only 2 of them because there's only ever 2 of them in Fireball and Stingray, wearing black, shiny black, and they have heads like upturned fruit bowls. But they also have...
I cannot expect a man of your low...
very narrow eyes.
So, I will translate. Oh,
I don't think I'm being sort of squeamish when I say that these guys feel just a teeny tiny bit racially questionable, shall we say?
I hadn't forgotten. One of your fireball ships.
It is obvious, you know, David Graham is playing this character in a certain
control here. I don't obey my commands. Or you will die.
In the style of a certain nationality. I'm staring at this puppet's head. It kind of looks like the Ice Warriors in the sense that most of his head seems to be a helmet, but his eyes are poking out through these narrow slits. And...
Hey, Pop.
Uh-oh.
What's going on?
My lieutenant tells me that this aggressive...
This episode was doing so well, and now these guys have turned up, and I just... Yeah, it looks like a helmet. But underneath you can see the chin, the mouth,
we can't persuade you to...
and that is essentially black. It is just black skin with these slit eyes and this awful, awful accent.
Aren't we gonna land, Steve?
I'm trying to think, Venus.
Uh-oh.
You know, there was something
For the XL5 crew, that's a fairly scary prospect. We could be here a while.
Why, if I could only get my hands on you.
Oh no! Stop it! Stop doing that! This... Oh no. Why... Everything you could have done wrong with these aliens is being done. The voice is just unacceptable.
Prepare to launch.
But their heads also just contribute to the fact that it's like, let's just be insensitive. Let's offend every nationality we could possibly do with these guys. And maybe, certainly at the time, it probably wouldn't have occurred to them that this would come to be seen as a bit questionable. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe people listening to this are thinking those voices are completely acceptable, and the fact that these characters are
Thank you.
very sort of...
Lieutenant informs me there is just 60 seconds left.
No, I think this is a serious misfire. Otherwise, this is a really good episode, despite the fact that we are just, again, invading Earth via Space City, and there's no real sort of global scale to this invasion. And the aliens have all just mysteriously passed out.
What do you mean, Venus?
Very simple, Steve. Our invaders collapsed with restamnesia, the space disease.
Why, zero?
Yeah, this is a very unsatisfactory way to end the episode. Nobody actually does anything to defeat the aliens. They're just defeated by the space sickness, whatever it was called, that Zuni got. And I know that's very much a nod to the War of the Worlds, but even so, it's never particularly satisfying.
It won't hurt a bit.
As much as I'm really getting a new appreciation for John Bluthal in this show, I'm also really enjoying the Commander Zero, Lieutenant 90 relationship perhaps more than I ever did as a kid. Certainly more than I do the XL5 crew, really. Anyway, that was Invasion Earth. A potentially really good episode, a very strong first half, nice sense of mystery. I like how sort of casual it was with regards to just offing various XL ships. And that's still quite shocking, actually. Just low XL whatever, bang, XL whatever, bang. As soon as the aliens turn up, looking the way they do, sounding the way they do, it all falls apart, culminating in just a non-ending. It's like we've reached the end of the episode and they're defeated. And we didn't have to do anything. Very convenient. I don't know, this is an episode that I would love to hear more people's opinions on. Do you find it a bit sort of racially iffy, or am I just being a big girl's blouse? Please let me know.
There you go, Richard.
Nice one, Chris.
Bit of Fireball,
Yeah.
like you said, things you might revisit, and
Absolutely.
the episode that the group of people from it was Canada, wasn't it? I mean, Chris did replay at the beginning of that, but I've already forgotten. That was the episode that was interrupted, and
I know,
many of them
and they
didn't
formed a
see
little
until
club.
decades later. Yeah,
That's right.
Amazing.
That's right.
And
yeah, really good.
Is it a problem the way they voice those characters?
It's interesting, is it now? I don't know. I was watching, Jamie, I'm sure many people out there will know it well, the Talons of Weng Chang, the Doctor Who from the 1970s, something, 80s?
70s,
Baker,
yeah.
And it's, for obvious reasons, you've got a white man playing an Oriental character, and it is uncomfortable viewing, actually. I didn't think it would be, because I know there's a lot of controversy about it, and I put it in the DVD player and thought, well, it'll be fine. But actually, it is
through a contemporary lens. Viewing. Yeah, it is.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? But these things are of their time, and you've got to view them with some kind of context. I think it's okay to have both opinions, isn't it?
Absolutely.
But this isn't.
That's right.
This isn't now right, but
that's right. That's right. It's not to say they did anything particularly wrong or malicious. It's just that things have changed, and that's a good thing. I mean, we should be, in fact, welcoming the fact that we're looking back on this stuff, and it's slightly uncomfortable viewing, perhaps.
Exactly. It's kind of
Shows
reassuring. Exactly what I was thinking, Richard. So there you go.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris. Another randomizer next week, as always. He's rattling through them, but there's still another 500 and something episodes to go. So
brilliant.
Plenty still to go. And And I think that's it for this one, isn't it? I'd just say if you have any particular memories of Richard Gregory or thoughts that you would like to share with his partner or his family, then please do send them into podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. I'm collating all of these things and I will hand them over in due course so that they've got all these wonderful things to read through. So any message, no matter how short or long, whether you met him or not, or you were even aware of his contribution to the entertainment industry until now or not, please do send it in and I'll make sure those messages are passed on.
Yeah, absolutely right. That would be lovely. That's great. So yeah, unapologetically, we have been celebrating the life of the man as we knew him, Richard Gregory, who sadly passed away last week far too early, but has left behind him such a brilliant body of work. And not only as a Gerry Anderson fan and as somebody who worked with Gerry and with Richard, am I indebted to him, but also just as a TV and film buff, I suppose. I probably couldn't count the amount of things I've seen of his on the screen.
Exactly.
So what a legacy indeed. So anyway, that's it for this week. Please join us for next week. It's pod number 30 something.
37 next week, yeah. With part 2 our interview with Marcus Hearn, and hopefully a slightly more upbeat episode. But we had to do this. It was only right.
Of course, sir. Yeah, that's right. So have a good week till then.
Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
So there's no post-credits banter from me and Richard this week, but as a tribute to our amazing friend Richard Gregory, we just wanted to play out this lovely version of the Terrahawks end theme performed by Crisper Morell. Enjoy.